Alright guys, today we are looking at probably one of my favorite customs that I've done to date. This is a 1968 Copo Camaro that's called the Street Fighter. And this car is based off of Dave Colbeck's 1967 Camaro with the same name, which was a late 70s era street machine. And this car has a lot going for it, and there's just a lot going on. And I'll give you a little bit of a backstory on this car. I first seen it in an old Hot Rod magazine, and I'll add some pictures of the real car so you kind of get a feel for it. This isn't an exact replica of the car, but it's heavily inspired by it. And the first time I ever seen this car was just a shot of the back of the car. And the rear spoiler says meaner than a junkyard dog on it. And it was jacked up, had a rebel flag painted on the gas tank. And I just really always thought that was like a really tough looking, kind of a vintage street racer look to it. But that was the only picture of the car I'd ever seen until fast forwarding to modern times, where we have access to things like the internet and Google Images. I started to research the car and found a couple more pictures of it. There's not a lot of pictures of the car, maybe like half a dozen if that. And I didn't even know the car was called the Street Fighter, but that's what was painted on the rear quarter panel. And it had some kind of flames like the ones on here on the side. And back in the late 70s, muscle cars from the 60s and early 70s kind of became just cheap used cars that people didn't really care too much about. We're talking after the gas crisis and after insurance rates went up and stuff, so things like a 67 Camaro weren't viewed as a super valuable car like they are today. You could probably pick one up for $800, $1,000, maybe even cheaper. And people made really cool customs and drag cars and street machines and over-the-top stuff that people nowadays wouldn't necessarily probably do, because they're these high-dollar muscle cars now that have to be all original and taken to things like Barrett-Jackson and get billions of dollars for them. But people used to actually have fun with these kinds of cars. Dave Colbeck built this car in the late 70s. It's kind of a tough street machine, street racer. And after almost crashing the car due to its over-the-top horsepower, he decided to part the car out, and I was never really seen again. So now we can relive that car with this custom Hot Wheels. What I did to the car was I had to get it that 70s jacked up in the back look. So I raised the back of the car up slightly. The front of the car's stance was left alone. That was really the only modifications that I had to do to the car. The rest of it was just done with paint and detailing. It's gloss black with some hand-painted flames and a hand-painted Street Fighter on the rear quarter panel. I'll give you a look at this side of the car. I wasn't able to add the meaner than a junkyard dog on the back of the spoiler just because it's pretty small and it would have looked kind of muddy and hard to read, so I left that alone. But I think everything else about the car was really captured. It's got vintage style rear rider wheels that kind of have that old Vector look that I painted to look like polished aluminum. And then probably the coolest part of the car is the underneath, with massive detailing, a bunch of different colors, and there's that rebel flag on the gas tank. But this car just turned out super cool. It's one of my favorite customs that I've done. I love old street machines and drag cars and street race cars and gassers, and this was just kind of something I've always wanted to build, and I finally just got around to doing it, and it turned out super cool. I'm really happy with it. And if you think it's cool, give it a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. And thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.